It's that time of the day, big picture time, guys. Welcome back to the big picture.
There were warning signs, especially from the media in the West, that the internet is going to disrupt the media. Many people in that industry had not expected. It hit where it mattered most, and that is the financials. The internet and social media, Google provided advertisements at a fraction of the price that the media was providing, reaching out to very specific audiences within very specific locations and giving instant results. I see artificial intelligence as an opportunity for newsrooms to, first of all, understand technology and the impact of technology in storytelling. We need to have more training. We need to unpack AI right from the beginning. I think it's in our best interest that we support the media and we wish the media well.
Guys, welcome back to the big picture. My name is John-Allan Namu. This is Africa Uncensored's flagship product to help you kind of figure your way around the issues that you're struggling with on a daily basis, be they the economy, be they fashion. People looking around at me in the room know why I'm talking about that, at least this season. And today we're doing a little bit of navel gazing. We want to talk about the media and some of the things and the trends that have been shaping the media and will do so going forward. And to do that, we've got a great guest. I say they're all great, but this one's particularly great because I've been following her work for a long time, from when she was in the newsroom to her stint in academia, and I'm very interested to know where she's going next. Dr. Njoki Chege, media and communications researcher. Thank you very much for joining us today, Njoki.
Thank you, John-Allan.
Should I refer to you as Dr. Njoki throughout the entire?
No, Njoki is fine.
Njoki is okay.
Fine. Yeah, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
And I've been following your work. Good job.
Asante, asante. It is the team that makes the dream work. So it's not just me. But
this is not the future of journalism anymore. We are living in the
right?
future.
I'm telling you, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, years back when we were both in the newsroom, I wonder if I could have even imagined us sitting here and having this kind of a discussion, because it was the golden era, right?
Yeah.
So I'll get to that in a moment. I want to introduce a young man who's seated behind you.
Okay.
Yeah, fact checker, I say extraordinaire.
Wow.
Just that, extraordinary fact checker, right? So Tom Ukwana from Piga Firimbi. So Tom and Njoki, just for a bit of context, we do fact checks on every show to try and help our audiences kind of manage their way through this infodemic that we're living through. And Tom and Tracy and the team usually come up with fact checks based on the subject matter. So I'm sure Tom has got something very interesting for us. Tom, utatuletea nini?
Stuff to do with AI, which I'm sure all of you are interested in, and also deep fakes, and a bit about trust in the media, globally and in Kenya.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Right. Tom, awesome. I'm loving the red shirt. It's giving Piga Firimbi. It's giving fact check. All right, so Njoki, I was talking about that golden era, and for me it was around 2010, right? Yes. So I'd been in the media from about 2005. 5 years or 3 years into Mwai Kibaki's reign, and there was a big shift in terms of the public's perception of the media. There was a lot more freedom, and commerce followed that kind of gravy train in terms of what people were thinking about. So 2010 was really a good time, right? And you were in the media then, publishing very interesting articles. But we are now 13 years since that time. What has changed?
Well, a lot has changed. Like you said, you're right. It was the golden era of the media. Actually, that was when journalists used to get bonuses, almost 3 or 4 times their salaries, depending on how well you performed. The advertising revenue model was booming. Of course, there was the internet. There was this thing called the internet, but it was something that audiences used to get information, to Google stuff and all that. But then there were warning signs, especially from the media in the West, that the internet is going to disrupt the media in a very profound way. But, you know, in Kenya, locally in Africa, that was something that was seen to be, you know, very, very far away. But then 5, maybe 6 years later, around 2013, 2014, those were still very good years. Actually, when you look at the financial reports of some of the publicly listed news media organizations in Kenya, you know, Nation Media Group and the Standard Group, because those are the two that are listed in the Nairobi Securities Exchange.
Yeah, Securities Exchange.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
It's sort of like a curve. They were at the top of their game, you know, getting significant profits, paying out those bonuses, you know, affording all kinds of, you know, equipment, studio equipment, you know, taking their staff to, you know, team building exercises. It was really good, you know, to work in the media at that time. Yeah. But then the internet came, and social media especially, and it disrupted the advertising model in a very profound way that many people in that industry had not expected. It hit where it mattered most, and that is the financials. So what happened is that, you know, the internet and social media, Google provided advertisements at, you know, a fraction of the price that the media was providing, reaching out to very specific audiences within very specific locations and giving instant results. Yeah. I mean, you could see if your ad had reached the audience that you were looking for. And that became very serious for the media. And around 2015, maybe 2016, things started to slide down in a very, you know, shaky way. And that's when we began to see layoffs in the media. We began to see cost-cutting measures. And also on the other side, we began to see the media rethinking the future. Now, you know, initially, there was this big word when we went into the newsroom first, this big word called convergence.
Convergence, yes.
Nobody really understood what
it meant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some said, yeah, it's a journalist, you know, writing for the newspaper, TV, radio, and online. But then how can one journalist do all that? I mean, if I'm a TV journalist, I'm used to doing 300 words in one story and, you know, putting lots of pictures and sound bites. But then you're telling me to do the same story in 900 words. Are you kidding me? You know, so so the issue of convergence became such a big deal. Yeah. We saw converged newsrooms, which sort of never worked. You understand? So there was a lot of push and pull in the newsroom as we began to understand and to think about the future. Yeah. So what happened is a lot of media organizations started redoing their strategies. We saw them now pivoting towards digital. Initially, online was just a section in the newsroom with one editor, you know, who was supposed to be the techie of the newsroom, the smart, you know, the computer guy in the newsroom.
And someone who just take news articles and just plonk them onto the internet and
precisely
nothing more.
Yeah. And actually, there's some previous age journalists who actually believed that print was superior to digital. So if you told them that their stories were going to digital in the afternoon before they are published the next day in the newspaper, they're like, that's not making sense. Yeah. But towards 2015, 2016, and 2017, the issue of digital became very, very critical. And we started seeing news media organizations tinkering with digital models of storytelling. So they started doing video, they started opening Twitter accounts. Suddenly they were on Facebook, some of them were even on Instagram. They were big on Twitter. They had their Twitter handles on their news bulletins and all that. Even for the print journalists, you could see their Twitter handles under their bylines and all that. And, you know, news stories trending became sort of a mark of a success. Yeah. And at that age, it was an arms race to clicks, you know, so the more your website had more clicks, the more it was successful and all that. Would say, you know, we have 4 million or 5 million visitors per month, so that's a mark of success. And that was 2016. Then we came to 2017 and 2018, and things all began to get really serious.
Yeah.
The layoffs became an annual event. I mean, journalists began, feeling the fear. And we actually saw some journalists now beginning to understand and to take interest in the commercial side of the business.
Yeah.
Initially, the editorial and the commercial side of the business were divided by, the Great Wall of China. It was akin to, separating the church and the state.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe some will say the church is the editorial side.
I remember that
exactly.
conversation like it was yesterday, because we were pitched on one side, right?
Exactly.
So as editorial, we're like, you guys go and sell what you're selling, but don't touch our content. We have nothing to do. In fact, we are upset that you'd even invite us to start considering what commercial means for our industry.
And then suddenly things changed.
Yeah.
So editorial and commercial teams began working together, sitting down and saying, okay, let's figure this out. These are our salaries, on the line. And it was very interesting to see the newsroom change. And you can see the fundamental ideals of the newsroom changing. That, suddenly if you're an editor and you wanted some extra pages on your pullout, the person to ask was not really the group editorial director.
Yeah.
It was actually the finance director, because the finance director would take out his calculator and say, okay, so you want 2 more pages in your, okay, so they do the math and they're like, okay, no, this is not making sense, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's valuable real estate that we can give to someone else.
Precisely.
I want to ask a question actually about that, right?
Yeah.
So the previous models of media were that we have these platforms that have reach in our localities, in the country, maybe even in the region. And the thing that they were selling was real estate, right?
Yes.
But as we've shifted and gone forward, there's a thing that, people start to describe what you find in the media using one word: value.
Yes.
What does value mean, right? For the people who are, looking at this conversation, and actually there's various iterations of the word value that you hear, and locally we'll be told that we are gathering media.
Yes.
It means something. It's not just that we are, akin to this very Kenyan dish, but there's something that they're saying.
Yes.
What is it that they're saying?
Okay, so let me take you back to your conversation about value.
Yeah.
So when you talk about value in media, it's to 3 constituents. So the first and most important is value to the audiences.
Yeah.
Are audiences finding value in sitting down and watching your bulletin? Remember, we have now moved from the appointment watching to now I am sitting here, I have my Twitter, and I just can see the news coming at me. I don't even have to find the news finds me.
Yeah.
So that's value. So am I getting value for my money? If I'm, for example, paying a subscription or I'm paying for TV, is the news that I'm watching of value to me? And we're going to come to the issue of news avoidance, and I like that we're going to be discussing that because that is a significant game changer in the media. Then secondly, is value for advertisers. And this is where the money is, because advertisers have realized that there are options now with digital, obviously what we've discussed. They want to know if I pay $4,000 or $5,000 for full page in a newspaper ad. We want to see conversions. We want to see people actually responding to our products and services. But it's kind of difficult if you're doing that on newspaper. So they do their math and they say, if we did that on digital, we are able to even get instant feedback from our customers and our clients. And then the third thing is also value to shareholders. Remember that some of the largest news media organizations in East Africa are publicly listed. And, this is about shareholders. And whether we like it or not, the leaders of these media organizations have to maximize shareholder value. They have to give their shareholders what is in it for them. For every investment, shareholders are going to ask them, what is going to ask? So how does this affect the top line and the bottom line? So, you understand how the media is, multifaceted in the sense that, when you talk about value. Now, coming back to the question on Githere Media,
Because it also implies a value discussion there.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the question around Githeri Media, first of all, I need to ask, who is calling the media Githeri Media? Because if the media is not telling the story, giving the side of the story that you like, you're going to call it Githeri Media. And I want to say this, that some of the most dedicated and talented and committed journalists in Africa, in this continent, are seated in Kenyan newsrooms. It's easy to criticize the media and the journalists when you're not in the newsroom, when you don't understand what it takes to bring a good story to you. We always accuse editors and journalists of corruption and all that, without realizing that a lot of them are putting their lives on the line to bring that story. But also, this is also a wake-up call to the media, because we've also seen some, lack of professionalism in the media. We're not, of course, naming names and that kind of thing. But also, I think Githeri Media is signaling to Kenyan journalists, Kenyan media, that the audiences want more. They want, beyond the he said, she said kind of journalism. They want you to go a layer deeper, because what we are seeing right now is that a lot of media right now is a mile wide and an inch deep. So there's a mile wide, inch deep.
I like that analogy. Yes.
Exactly. So there's, they're covering so many things, but without depth. And I think what the audiences are signaling to the media is that, look, go beyond the breaking news, go beyond who won the elections. Tell us why they won and how they won.
I want to jump in there and ask this. So you've categorized value in three ways, right?
Yes,
and we are discussing the depth that journalists need to go and the lengths that journalists need to go to now to be able to satisfy at least one of those, pillars of value, right? Being the audience. But look, the Standard Group issued its first profit warning in 2014. By 2016, we had something that was called Vera. Guys nicknamed it Vera, which was voluntary early retirement. As you mentioned, it's become an annual event in the Star, the Nation, the Standard Group. We're looking at the Standard Group posting losses of 1 billion shillings, right? How does a journalist working in a newsroom that is posting these kinds of losses do that, drill down, go that deep? Without the resources to
without the resources. And this is a conversation that we've had many times, is that journalists, and that's why I said that some of the most dedicated and committed journalists sit in Kenyan newsrooms. And we understand their challenges, that you can want to do a really good story, you do a budget, maybe it's costing you $2,000, maybe $3,000, but the newsroom is like, no, we don't have that kind of money. And this is where we have the conversation around the strategy. Who is determining the strategy of these news media organizations? This actually goes all the way to newsroom leadership. We need to now, and I'm saying this, coming from a good place, because I want to appreciate that a lot has been done. I mean, some of the boards of these media organizations and the leaderships, they've really tried, to think ahead, to think digital and all that. But like I was saying, sometimes it feels like some of these investments that are being done right now are just being done too little, too late. These are investments that should have been done during the golden age.
Give me an example of these kinds of investments that should have been done.
That's a very good question. For example, when you talk about setting up digital newsrooms, like fully digital newsrooms with the cameras, the websites, the videos and all that, and even this kind of long form journalism and even paywalls. These are things that should have started being experimented in maybe 2013, probably 2012, thereabout. And I know this is an unfair comparison, but that is when the New York Times and the Wall Street Journals of this world started doing those experiments. Because right now, 20 million, which is about $200,000 maybe $180,000. 20 million is the difference between a news media organization issuing a profit warning, and posting good results. Just
20 million.
Yeah, for some of these guys.
Yeah.
But back in the day, 20 million was a drop. Oh, it was a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
1 billion. I mean, we had a news organization invest nearly 2 billion in a
printing press.
In a printing press.
Yes.
Right now, I doubt they can do that without significantly denting their cash reserves. So some of these things that we are seeing right now, experimenting on YouTube with video, mobile first kind of journalism, the training that journalists have to go, because right now we are talking about retooling and reskilling of journalists. Some of these things should have been done 10 years ago. But there's no use saying that. We are not helping anyone, saying, what you're doing right now should have been done 10 years ago. But what I'm saying is that for now, there's been a lot of investment that is being done. But I think what needs to happen right now, and I think now we are getting into the conversation around media sustainability, is that news organizations now need, and this is a controversial view, that news organizations now need to start thinking about alternative sources of revenue. Because what is happening in the media right now is that, the core of the problem right now is that the advertising business model has been severely undermined. Yeah. You understand? Reader revenue now is something that they are experimenting with, but it's not enough.
It's not going to be enough. And
exactly.
I think it's, just to jump in a little bit, I think you're right. It is controversial that the media should start thinking about completely alternative sources of revenue. I know around the world that's something that's being experimented with.
Yes.
The challenge that I often see with the media here, and I think across Africa, specifically with, just to take a step back, training, for instance.
Yes.
All of these things are expensive.
Yeah.
All of these things eat at your bottom
Yes.
line. And yet you're supposed to sort of like walk, chew gum, respond to your audiences and that sort of thing. Do you see the media being able to survive past this very intense moment where you need all of these things to survive, and yet you have half the cash to do it? Yeah,
I think they will survive because, first of all, they must survive because free and independent press is the cornerstone of a strong democracy in any country. So it is in the best interest, and I've written about this, that Kenyans don't know what they're talking about when they say that, this is Githeri media, away with the media, or now, we are getting our news from these kinds of blogs and, the swampy part of the internet.
Yeah.
I think it's in our best interest that we support the media and we wish the media well. Yeah. But going back to your question on whether the media is going to survive, I think they will survive. And the media that is going to survive is, first of all, the media that sticks to the core journalistic principles. It's all about the good journalism. It's all about the content. But then this content is very expensive. A lot of media right now, their strategies are in the right place. They're talking about a digital strategy. They're talking about alternative sources of revenue. Although for the alternative sources of revenue, they don't exactly understand what is going on. But we are seeing things turning around. The needle is moving. It's moving slowly, but it's moving. When we talk about reader revenue is not new. Newspapers have always been, supported through reader revenue, buying the newspaper, donations, and that kind of thing. It's just that if, let's say, the Standard was going to charge you the actual amount or the actual cost of that newspaper, which maybe they're charging you 60 shillings, it would probably come to maybe 200 shillings. But then it's the advertiser that subsidizes that price. So the newspaper is able to give you 60 shillings. So they're going to survive if they now start thinking about strategy to do with two things. The first is content, because audiences are not going to pay for content that is not solid.
Yeah.
Studies have been done, the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at the University of Oxford. Right? So, yeah. And they're saying that, especially for younger folks, if they had the opportunity to pay for subscription, music subscription, content subscription, that is entertainment content, like Netflix, Hulu, and that kind of stuff, Showmax and all that, and news subscription, the news subscription would come at the bottom. I think some of them would start with a music subscription, then entertainment, then news. This goes to show that even as we are talking about revenue, reader revenue, the subscription, we are fighting for that subscription fee with so many other things, music, entertainment, this kind of stuff. But then it also has to be content that is not only going to be meaningful, but also will resonate with audiences at their level. And studies have shown that audiences are interested in news content, yeah? But they're also interested in lifestyle content. They want to understand parenting. They want to look at nice recipes and try them out. They want to understand things to do with motoring, for example, with interest-based kind of content. That's lifestyle. So the first thing is content. That's the first bucket. The second bucket, like I said, is alternative sources of revenue. You see, the reason why the New York Times is successful and the reason why we cannot use the New York Times particularly as a yardstick for determining success for the Kenyan media is because the New York Times is a global audience. They're in the US, which is a huge market. They're in Europe, which is a big market. They're in Asia. Well, and they're also in Africa, but although we don't get the numbers. So that's the reason why reader-based revenue is successful for the New York Times.
Because
it's all about economies of scale. But by the time you get to 200,000 paying subscribers for a local newspaper, you've really worked hard. I think
you've also, there are some miracles that have happened.
I know, you've employed some serious rainmakers who just perform miracles. And by the time we get there, it's gonna be tough. I think one of the local news organizations that had launched their paywall, and then I think they sort of stopped it. One of their financial results, in one of their financial reports, they had said that I think they have about 16,000 paying subscribers. That's a drop in the ocean. So by the time we get there, it's going to be a lot of work. And that's why we're saying that we need alternative sources of revenue. We've seen news organizations, play around with native advertising, for example. Although there's a question, there's a philosophical discussion around the ethics of native advertising. Are you going to signpost the content? What if your clients are in the news for the wrong reasons? So that's also an interesting conversation. But then there's also, conversations around launching content studios, entertainment kind of content studios. And I'd like to give you the example of Naspers. Naspers has a bit of, a dark history with a newspaper back in the day, the kind of newspaper, the stories that they were running, and all that. But it's a media company that has been able to reinvent itself in a very big way. Of course, you remember the investment that they did with Tencent in China, that had the greatest returns in the history of returns, and now what they're doing with Showmax and DSTV and that kind of stuff. What I'm trying to say is that we now need to move away from the advertising kind of business model. I do understand and I appreciate that the advertising model is still paying salaries right now. And that's why companies like Nation Media Group and The Standard are still investing in the print newspaper because it still does pay. When you look at their financials, you see that the print advertising is still king. Digital is growing and the numbers are also growing, but the revenue from digital is barely enough to cover what we have lost from print.
So it's not yet quite time to switch over.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. So like one of my friends, who's an executive in one of those media organizations, saying that we are going to milk this cow until this cow, there's no more milk.
Until the cow is giving powdered milk, it's done.
It's done.
Well, I get that. I get that thinking. So you kind of still have to like profit on what's giving you profit now.
Yes,
and build for the future.
And in strategy, we call that organizational ambidexterity, where an organization is, okay, first of all, let me explain. Ambidexterity, it means that there are people who are right-handed and there are people who are left-handed. And then there are those superhumans who can use both left and right.
Yeah.
For most of us, like myself, I just basically have 2 limbs, 4 limbs, but 1 very strong hand. My left hand is basically useless.
It's just there for
it's just there for, I know. It's
so like an ambidextrous person would be like Leo Messi, who's able to dribble off his left and his right.
Exactly. Yeah, so you do what you can do with your left, you can do with your right. Now, when you talk about organizational ambidexterity, it means that organizations are actively leveraging on the current strengths that they have. That is print, advertising, and all that. Still milking whatever they can get, but also at the same time exploring the opportunities for the future.
Just put a pin in that, because you've just like segued us into a really interesting part of this discussion, which is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Right? So we've seen first of all, I'm sure you've experimented with ChatGPT as an example of AI, right?
Definitely. It's written a few of my emails.
Aha, okay. Yeah. So Dr. Njoki Chege with the help of ChatGPT, right? Sponsored by.
Yeah.
And it's incredible, just the computing power, the processing power, and the speed at which it can produce things that you'd take weeks to be able to do. It's really like overwhelming, right? And so there's schools of thought right now around artificial intelligence.
Yes.
There are those guys who are looking at it and are like, hey, my job as a consultant, my job as a strategist, my job in XYZ, even eventually as a fact checker at home, right, will be in jeopardy. But I'm saying this as well, sitting here, knowing that a lot of the things that I do on a daily basis can be crunched very quickly.
Yes.
So what's your view on the influence of artificial intelligence now and going forward? Is it something that the media should actively be looking at, experimenting, or figuring out ways to police so that it doesn't eat into these dwindling profits as some people are thinking? Yeah.
First of all, let me give my personal understanding or my personal definition of artificial intelligence. It's basically teaching machines to do what humans have been doing. So you teach a machine to write. Then, of course, there's those layers of artificial intelligence, like natural language processing, that does translations and that kind of stuff. Now, artificial intelligence for the media is, like you said, you're right, is a very divisive topic. And I dare say that the media industry is divided right down the middle when it comes to artificial intelligence. There's that school of thought that says that approaches artificial intelligence from a position of fear, that this thing has come to take our jobs, it has come to replace us. Very soon, stories are going to be written by robots and all that. And actually, it's happening. The BBC has experimented with that. But then there's also the school of thought of this is a really good thing. We need to leverage this and we need to understand artificial intelligence. I'd like to call them the pro-AI group, the optimist in this case. And for me, I think I'm more in that side where I see artificial intelligence as an opportunity for newsrooms to, first of all, understand technology and the impact of technology in storytelling. Artificial intelligence has been used in storytelling. Artificial intelligence has been used to understand audiences. What we are seeing globally, I'll give examples of what we are seeing globally. A lot of global newsrooms have been building their own AI tools to understand audiences. They want to understand, okay, so this is John-Allan Namu. He likes, let's say, Formula One, maybe rugby, golf, and that kind of thing. And these are the stories that we want to give him. We want to curate the web page, the landing page for our website, specifically for John-Allan. But then we take it a step further. And we say, okay, so John-Allan has a history of paying for subscriptions at the, Standard, Digital, Star newspaper. So maybe we need to dangle something for John-Allan. And they, once you're on their webpage, they ask you to pay, or they give you a really nice welcoming deal to welcome you. But then there are also those other, readers that they look like, oh, this is Njoki, she doesn't pay for subscriptions. Let her just read her free article and she's on her way. So that's how newsrooms are using. And then also the third thing, they're also using it for content, to suggest, the kind of content that you need to read. And what we are seeing here is a lot of newsrooms are doing what you're calling algotorial. So they're using algorithms paired with editorial. So it's both using the data, the artificial intelligence, and an actual human editor to curate stories for their audiences. Now, AI is the gift that keeps giving when it comes to the media. It can be used for very different things. It can be used to understand your audiences. It can also be used to understand your staff, your journalists, and that kind of thing. But then locally, we are just barely scratching the surface. We are at the conversation level. It's not even at a nascent stage. We are now at this level of having conversations
about what we
exactly.
And I think perhaps why this is the issue is because of the example that I gave. For instance, generative AI tools like ChatGPT, etc., are overwhelming. But people don't think about the fact that they've actually been using AI for years. I'll give you an example. So we, in some of our investigative work, have used OCCRP's ALEF tool, which is like a network analysis tool. And what it's been trained to do is be able to create sort of like network batches and stuff of people who have relationships. For instance, if I was doing a procurement investigation, I'd be able to establish the relationships quite quickly based on certain criteria that is read from the documents that I put into it, as an example. That's even at a rudimentary use of AI, that is artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
So it's really the use of that technology to aid what you do, right? But what's overwhelming to audiences, to the media, is the fact that it feels like my job's kind of going away. And I understand why we're at that level.
Exactly.
How then now do we start to deepen our interest in AI? But I'd also add, Njoki, a proviso here that AI is not where we need it to be in terms of the kinds of, for instance, generating content. Not yet. It's not yet there. But how do
even globally.
Even globally. So then how do you invest in that kind of future? Now that we're at this stage, and even globally, it's still fairly early,
I'll talk about the local context at two levels. So at first, it's at the operational level. We need journalists to start understanding AI. And I'm talking editors, journalists, everyone in the news generation process. So we need to have more training. We need to unpack AI right from the beginning. What is AI? This is what it does. This is what it has been done. And then we narrow it down like a funnel and say, this is what AI means in the newsroom. That's at an operational level. And then at a strategic level, we need the newsroom leadership. We need company leadership to understand the value of technology. A lot of them at this level, they think, technology is, high-tech cameras, we are on digital, we're on YouTube and all that. That's digital, mobile first, videos and all that. But then we need to take this conversation around technology a step deeper. We need to understand how is technology like AI, big data, robotics going to impact our newsroom. Let's not make the same mistake that we made 10 years ago when we were being told there's going to be a digital revolution.
And we're fighting it.
And we are fighting it. And we are starting to, it's tough wars in the newsroom. We're saying, don't use my story for digital. It's a story that is supposed to be in the newspaper the next day and that kind of thing. So this is the right time for boards to begin to understand this is the value that AI brings to the top line and to the bottom line, because that's the only language that boards understand at this, and it's, because they do have a mandate. And they also now need to understand, if we were to invest, where would we start? Because you don't want to start investing $10 million in AI without really understanding what it does. So it needs to be a gradual process of, first of all, understanding, identifying the opportunities, and within those opportunities, also identifying the low-hanging fruit. Like the free AI tools like ChatGPT and that kind of stuff. How can we get our newsrooms to use that kind of stuff to make their work easier? You understand? Like what you were talking about with the networks and everything. I'm sure this is something that a lot of news and investigative journalists probably don't understand. So I think the first level we should be at this, the first thing we should be doing at this level is just getting to understand AI inside, outside.
True.
Of course, you will not understand the A to Z because AI is a moving target. It's evolving. Yesterday's ChatGPT is going to be very different from next
Tomorrow's,
quarters. Exactly. So I think that's where we need to start, which is realistic.
It is a realistic conversation, and the future of the media might seem unclear, but it's just one of those technologies, in the raft of different technologies, Web3, etc., that would completely change the way, media is interpreted, how media is used, and how we ourselves express ourselves through, through our journalism, etc. Njoki, we have so much that I'd like to discuss, but we're kind of now like getting to the edge of the time that we have. I want to ask Tom to come in here, right?
Okay.
So we've just been talking about AI, Tom, right? And I don't know if you remember, there was like this really like super dope picture of the Pope in like a bubble jacket.
Net chains.
I knew it was real. Like I was like, yes, yes, look at him. Like the Holy Ghost, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
He had a huge chain with the crucifix.
It looks so nice, but that was like AI generated, right?
Yeah,
so what do you have for us in terms of like AI and misinformation, disinfo?
So more recently, on the 22nd, that was Monday last week, when this was recorded.
22nd of May.
Of May,
yes.
Yes.
For our audiences who will watch this in June and going forward.
So if you're looking at this, it's an image that shows something that looks like a government or state building or institution, say the Pentagon or Capitol Hill, which is where most of US assets are. So the image was posted online, and you can look at it here. It says an explosion near the Pentagon, breaking news. It has a blue check with a company affiliated to it. So this is for years we've looked at the blue check as a mark of
credibility.
Credibility, and you can trust them. This was fake, but look at the likes: 482 likes, 74 quote tweets, and 180 retweets. They reach 125K views. This wasn't where it was posted first. It was first posted on Facebook. Facebook later pulled it down. But just to show how significant such images can be as far as the effect is concerned, it had a 0.3% effect on the stock exchange, the S&P 500 in the US. Estimates $500 billion in dips on that day, just because of this
Just
image.
because of that image?
Yeah, people started selling.
Okay.
Because this is speculation of a terrible
like an attack,
event.
etc.
This could only be second to the 9/11 attack. So investors started selling.
Gosh.
That just shows you how big generative AI can become.
And the impact that it could have if misused. I think that to Njoki's advice is why we should all now start thinking about how to be able to use AI, right? So that we can be able to spot these things in time and mitigate against the kind of harm that could be caused, right?
Yeah. And also it speaks to our, as you know, our duty as the media, our duty of care in terms of media literacy. We need to educate our audiences that just because that Twitter handle is verified, has our logo, and has our name, does not necessarily mean that it's us who have tweeted that. So media, just beyond even saying fake, you know, that red thing, media now needs to take very seriously media literacy programs, telling the audiences that this is how you spot fake news. This is a fake video. Educating our aunties to stop, you know, forwarding those things on WhatsApp and
every
all
flu
that.
season there's a new strain that could kill you, and there's a new strain of ginger that could cure you magically. And that's so true, and that's, I mean, the value, of course, that Tom and the team at Bigger Firimbi are trying to bring to this conversation here, but in others, right? Dr. Njoki Chege.
Yes.
Like I said, I have many questions that I'd like to ask,
yes,
but we kind of have come to the end of our time. I'm hoping to invite you another time.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, but we do have a tradition here,
yes,
right? And we are not doing it via Mid-Journey. We have an actual person who is in here,
yes,
who's been watching you tell us all of these interesting things about the media. And he has, Louis, he has, let me take a look first. So this is our gift to you to say thank you for being on the big picture. Yeah, courtesy Mr. Luis Alosa, caricature artist extraordinaire, who we have on the show to just kind of give our guests a thank you.
This is brilliant.
You like it?
I like it.
To that camera
oh
over
my
there.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And you brought me slimmer. I mean, thank you.
This is so interesting. Like there's always, like yesterday we had a guest of ours and he's like, yeah, you've got my forehead and you like made it like 10 times bigger. Yeah, so thank you very much for being on the show, and I hope to invite you again so that we can discuss what's happening in the media. Yeah, of course, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who's watching the show, Dr. Njoki Chege has been doing lots of research around the media and the future that it portends for us in the media, but also the impact that it could have on you. You can follow her work. Njoki, where should we follow?
On Twitter, at Njoki Chege, yeah. And I also write a weekly column in the Saturday Nation. I write about the media, communications, digital economy, and creative economy.
Yeah.
Yes,
interesting topics.
Yeah,
if you want to be like on the forefront of what's happening globally. This is another episode that we're bringing to an end here. As usual, I'm going to remind you, we've got a Patreon channel. If you want to be a patron of Africa Uncensored, tupa something there. You know, it could be $5, it could be $1, it could be whatever, but just do it consistently, because that helps us to be able to bring such great guests onto shows like these, as well as do the investigative work that we're doing. Also subscribe. We're hitting 100,000 subscribers now on our YouTube channel. We want to do the same for Twitter. We want to do the same everywhere, so that every time you see our work, you know it's from us, you know that there's a big audience behind it, and you can support the work that Sam, Ashley, Louis, Steve, I'll name everybody, Tom, Tracy, you know, it's like now a rap video at this point, but everybody who's doing great work here at Africa Uncensored. The end of one more episode of The Big Picture. We'll see you on the next one, folks. Bye for now.